Chapter 17. Dia and I found a new spot behind the school wall where we met and chatted as he polluted his lungs with dark tobacco. He told me the secrets of the Dia tobacco. Since his grandpa's time, they had kept a plot of land in their backyard the size of a basketball court where they grew broad-leaved tobacco. The rich, bitter flavor was attributed to the fact that young Dia each morning watered the plants with the contents of 3 full nights pots used overnight by the men in the Dia household. The thick, smelly piss nourished the young plants and added a special flavor not found with other growers. Thus, Dia's brand worked like a double-barreled shotgun, powerful and potent. It remained the only tobacco known to be able to quench their nicotine addiction, not a small feat. "Have a smoke." Dia sat down and rolled me a thick one. "No thanks, not after you told me this piss story. You'll need some sort of smoke for what I gotta tell you." It sounded bad. I looked into his eyes and he looked down. I took the roll and let him light it for me. Instantly, I felt the potent kick. The Dia piss worked miracles. I spat like a fisherman. "What's the matter?" "Midterm grades are out." He had a dead man's tone, flat. "How are ours?" I could feel my heart begging for mercy from the good Buddha. "Make it presentable," I promised him, "and I'll give you another 1,000 kowtows this very night." "Well, mine are terrible." "And?" "Yours are really bad." Kowtowing wouldn't be necessary anymore. I had hit bottom and I deserved it. I puffed on the bitter smoke. For the first time, I felt good as I inhaled. I felt the rush go to my head. It was comforting and I was satisfyingly numb. I leaned back on the red dirt wall limply, like a piece of smashed tofu. There wasn't an ounce of strength left in my body. I was a failure, shaming myself and my family. I should change my last name and never return home to beg for meals anymore. Maybe I would take to the road like Mo Gong and Siang. The burden of failure made me despise myself. "That's not all," Dia added, stealing a careful look at me. "What do you mean?" "Someone pasted the results of all your exams on the wall outside our classroom. Now the whole school knows." "Son of a whore, must be our principal teacher." I gritted my teeth and slammed my fist into the soil. Now I was the laughing stock of the whole school. All my enemies, old and new, would be rejoicing over my downfall. Not only was I the son of a landlord, but I was stupid and lazy. Wise people could forgive the former, but not the latter. I had shamed my whole family tree. My family of tired young farmers would have no patience when the only student in the household came home with disgraceful academic results. They worked their butts off in the fields, calloused their hands, bent their young backs, and lost their dream of being young. I had been wasting my time smoking, playing around, and not making use of the great opportunity offered me. It was a sin they couldn't have afforded to commit. With my head bent and eyes downcast, I stumbled into our dining room. The whole family stopped talking as I entered. Silence. I deserved it. I slid into my seat and stared at the tip of my chopsticks, eating carefully so that they didn't clink on the edge of the bowl and anger anyone. I heard myself slurp in the rice. The silence was getting heavier with each passing second. Dad scooped a big spoonful of green beans into my bowl. It was a good sign. The head of the family had spoken with his action. I stole a look at him. He looked back. You broke a record, they say." I was quiet. "It's time you do something about it. Your brother here wants to take time off to prepare for the college exam, but the commune won't allow him. Even if they do allow him, we're not sure we could do without his food rations." He pointed at the rice that was getting cold in my bowl. I stared at it and my guts twisted with guilt and sorrow. I wished I were dead. If I had been the older one, I would have been out there hustling. I witnessed the hardships of my brother and sisters endured every day. They were in their late teens and early 20s. They had no new clothes and no money, just bodies filled with aches and pains, such as only older folks should have. But the worst was that they thought they would be forced to be farmers for life. unable to marry anyone else but another farmer, to bear another generation of lowly farmers on into infinity. The sun would never rise in their minds. It was modern-day slavery on the farm, with the promise of little in return. In contrast, all I did was go to school, and what had I achieved? A shameful performance. You have a year and a half to get your act together. The farming tools will all be ready and waiting for you in the pigsty just in case. It sounded like probation. No improvement, and I would be condemned to a life sentence on the communist farm. I looked up at everybody after the sentencing, feeling a load being lifted off my back. They all wore mixed expressions of reproach and criticism, along with a touch of encouragement and even hope. The whole spectrum. I loved my family. That night, before going to sleep, I asked Mom to wake me at 5 from the following day on and every day afterward. I promised her that I would use the precious morning hours before breakfast, when my mind was uncluttered, to take a bite out of those unopened books of mine, and she nodded thoughtfully, half doubting my sincerity. I went to my room and knelt before the makeshift shrine to Buddha for a good 10 minutes, not knowing what to beg from his benevolence. I was a total mess. Guilt ate away at my soul for goofing off what precious time I had before the national entrance examinations. I banged my head on the floor, swearing to work hard from then on. In the end, I became dizzy and went to sleep with a big smile on my face. I was sure that Buddha, my smiling, chubby spiritual light, had heard me this time. I'd banged hard enough. I figured that with 18 months left until the national exam, I simply had to use every waking moment of my life for studying. It would be 4 years' worth of work squeezed into 18 months. My life was over for the time being. No friends, no movies, no chatting, no sitting in class passively awaiting the inept teacher to feed you. It had to be a flat-out attack on all the books I hadn't touched. I was going to breathe and live those books. But which books should I start with? I looked at them, puzzled. I needed a scheme, a method, or I would never beat the competition. Only 1 out of 100 made it in. I could easily kiss the books and my life goodbye and say hello to rice paddies. A big official poster about the new college system was posted conspicuously on the wall of the commune's headquarters. Hundreds of young people traveled miles just to stand before it for hours, half believing what it said in black and white. Some copied it down on a small piece of paper and brought it back for others to see, as if they couldn't trust their memory. Confusion reigned among the people of Yellowstone. Only months ago, Chairman Mao had been alive and kicking on his sick bed under the loving care of his young nurses, who saw it as a heroic, patriotic act to mix their business with his pleasure. School was bad and revolution was good. Young people had gotten used to it. They liked it that way. They beat up the teachers, burned down schools, marched out of classes, and drank and smoked as they saw fit. There were no tests, no grades, no good students, no bad students. They were all bad, therefore all good. Everything was fine because Mao said so. Now everything was upside down again. The announcement explained nothing. It didn't make any distinction between the families of the politically good and the politically bad families. It said the tests were open to all and that admission into college was based purely on performance. Suddenly, everyone was talking about college. People gathered in knots, swapping gossip about who would be the most competitive in the tests. The bridge where my friends used to sit and chat about women and gambling was now a forum in which they discussed who the next math or English wizard might be. War stories about some legendary teachers from our high school began to circulate among the people of Yellowstone. There was the fat math teacher, Dew, with bushy eyebrows and a birthmark as ugly and prominent as a dark cloud on a sunny day. Before the Cultural Revolution, each year on the day prior to the National College exam, Mr. Dew would call an emergency meeting for all the graduates, flip open a portable blackboard, and show the lengthy solutions to a few complicated math questions he predicted would appear as major score gainers. He would come in and talk briefly, but importantly, for 10 minutes. The meeting was over when he lit his cigarette. Nervous students hurriedly jotted down all the details and committed them to memory. Dew's track record had been consistent, 8 out of 10. Marginal students had been brought to tears when they saw the questions appear on the real exam. Then there was the history teacher, Mr. Waugh, who was no pretty boy either. He looked frighteningly like someone from the Pleistocene age, minus the thick body hair. All he needed to do to give us a living picture of Peking Man was to bend his back a little, walk slowly in front of the class, and let his long arms dangle on both sides. His head had only two parts, the forehead and the chin. His eyes gleamed wildly under a steep cliff of a forehead, and his small nose flattened out above a set of teeth so big that he had a hard time closing his mouth. He spoke in a stutter, spattering everything around him with saliva. His voice roared like Peking Man's must have done, seemingly unaccustomed to the gentility of evolution. And then there were the super students who had attended high school before the Cultural Revolution and had a solid foundation in all the subjects. Among them were my cousin Tan and a neighbor by the name of Lee. Candidates worked on old college exam questions. These guys breezed through effortlessly. In the eyes of youngsters like me, they were heroes. As the first national examination drew near, the talk of legends stopped. Everyone watched silently as the candidates nervously awaited their date of trial. On the first day of the examination, pale students walked toward the test sites, quiet and anxious. Mr. Dew called for a meeting. So did the Peking Man. The meetings were open to all. Thousands of students crowded into the high school's open-air gym and listened through crackling loudspeakers to two legends at work. The atmosphere was as sacred as at a religious event, and hearts were just as pious. At 9 a.m., I put down my books and joined the rest of the crowd to watch the uniformed county police ride into town on three-wheeled motorcycles, carrying the examination papers. The street was quiet as the police honked their way noisily through the thick crowd. Hours later, some of that crowd would be winners, and many would be losers. I held my head between my hands and sneaked back to my room. I felt weak in the knees just thinking about those poor guys who opened up their papers and registered a blank. One of them could be me. It had definitely been me at midterm. I buried my head hopelessly among my books, then stared out the window.